Morning everyone, I'm Lilly Code and today is day 4 of 100 days of code on my career tech and coding channel. So yeah, let's just get into it. It's the morning. Excuse my hair, you know, tried to do something alright with it, but I'm not sure if it's okay for you people out there, but it's good enough for me, so I just want to get into the coding. So, time to learn. Let's go guys, come on. So again, I'm going to just start off by watching a bit of the video, catching up with it, and then starting to code and explaining to you what I'm doing as I go. So basically what we're doing here now is Maximilian has told the Schwarzmuller. I really need to look at a video of him pronouncing his own name because this is just ridiculous at this point. But anyway, so what he has told us is that the state here, when we're using it up here, we've declared useState 3 times. And this is a valid way of doing this. That's perfectly fine. But a second approach is we can use the useState and then declare an object. So we open up our parentheses and then we open up our curly brackets, and this is declaring an object with these 3 things in them. And by declaring these 3 things and initializing them, we're managing the state of all of these together, and it can be done in this smaller piece of code. So if it's something where you want to manage the state of things together, which for our expense form we do, I'm not sure in what instance you wouldn't want to do that. Like I presume if you had perhaps 2 forms on a page that you would want them to have separate states, or perhaps they might have same states depending on the functionality, but that's a case where I could think maybe you would need 2 separate objects. But it makes sense to me here now that you can put all these in one. They're all related to the one form. We're going to be managing the state at the same time when we hit the submit button, so therefore we can declare it like this, just to save a few characters. So we can get rid of these. And we set them slightly differently. Okay. So we still need to see what the thing we get back is. So when we're using state, first of all, we tell it what it is we want to manage the state of, and then we get back a function which allows us to update this object that this thing that we have declared that we want to do something with. So here we're going to define user input. That's the thing that we want to keep an eye on and manage the state of. And then we also have our function, which is the thing that's going to allow us to actually edit that then. And then we equal this to this, which makes perfect sense. I didn't realize that was in the wrong place. Okay, so that's like that. And then we want to change the way we're doing capturing setting the events we want to change the way we're setting the input from the user, so the title, the amount, or the date. So here we were capturing the value that was typed in from the keyboard, and then we wanted to set the title to this value that was typed in. So whatever we typed in, we want to make the title that new thing. So whereas now, because we've set it up slightly differently, we have the one object we're going to call set user input here, which makes perfect sense. Do you know, explaining through this, just don't do anything mindlessly. It's actually helpful. Enter title. Dot file new. Okay. Okay. So what's going on here is basically this is the spread operator, and what this is doing is spreading out the values that are inside this object that have come back. So it places it into a new object, the user input. Yes, so it's captured in the user input. The user input then is spread out, and by doing it like this, then we can access each value in this spread out object, and we can access the enter title from that object without disrupting the other ones. It's not like we're popping it off an array or something like that. We're just having a look at it. The object still retains the information that was in it. We're not mapping it, we're not changing it, we're just having a look at it. So yeah, then we're going to do this in each of the places. So what did I do there? Oh yeah, okay. So I need all of this. Just watching the video, guys. Really recommend Max's stuff. He just explains stuff so well. I'm giving you little bits of explanations as I go, which, you know, coming across the problems and working through them, that's really, really valuable. Although so is just getting in and practicing, so come and join the challenge. It's free. There's no cost. You just do an hour of coding, so yeah. Oh, okay. So what he's explained so far is that when we're using an object like this and we're doing it like this, you're managing all the states in one go. So every time you want to set one of the user inputs, you have to copy this object again and say, oh, it's that same object, and then just change one of the things, which can be prone to error. So yeah, I'm not sure if I fully explained that correctly last time. I think I was still along the right lines. Like, you're just destructuring it and separating out the object that's already there, but it's the object that's there from the user input, and you're maintaining that same object. I think that's what's going on. That is what's going on. So this is a safer way of setting the user input. When you do it like this, React can definitely guarantee that this state is the previous state. So if you had a load of these going on the page, sometimes the states are not like kept directly after, so you may get an older version of the state, which wouldn't be good. So you might get an older version of the state, something that was inputted previously, or like say if you're typing a full sentence, you might only get not the last letter or something. It would be something like that, because that's what this is. Their particular state is capturing in this title. It's just capturing the user input when they're writing in the title of an expense. So yes, this one is just a bit safer because you're guaranteed it's going to be the last title that was typed in. Yeah. So do it by this function. Okay, he said we should memorize this. So So he was just informing us of how we could do it this way, but we're actually going to go back and do it the first way. So it was just to explain that that's how we do that. So I'm going to just go back here. But this is the more common way used in React, and this is the way he recommends. So I should just stick a disclaimer somewhere on these videos, like I'm just going through, I will put a disclaimer in the description box, I'm just going through this and learning from my own learning and sharing my journey with you guys, you know, and thanks so much for being here with me. It's fantastic. But I will be posting other videos that are much more educationally focused, and this isn't necessarily a tutorial for you to follow on with by any means, because this is Max's content. So like I won't even put up the whole course necessarily. I mean, I'm not going to intentionally skip bits, but I'm not going through this in a logical step-by-step manner and properly explaining the things that you need to know, because I'm just completing the tutorial myself. That's not what my main goal is, and I would not do that with somebody else's content. That's just not fair. Like, it's not I don't know if it's illegal, but it's definitely not fair. So no, I wouldn't put the entire course here. I'm just going to go through and document my progress on the 100 days of code. I'm sure there might be a day or two where I progress a little bit in the morning or in the evening and come back in and I've got my hour recorded, so that won't be part of my hour. So I just feel like I should say that, because I think if you're just like sitting around, you know, and you want to learn about coding, just sitting and listening to these videos, listening to the terminology, listening to me explain what it is I'm doing as I'm doing it, and just looking at the code, and when I come across a bug, seeing me solve it, that'll be the most useful. And I actually have a video series coming out as well where I actually sit down and solve bugs, and just solve bugs. You know, if I solve a bug, there will be a video, it will be going up, the shebang, the whole works, because they're the bits I wish I had the help with. But yeah, just to let you know, this isn't like follow along, get out your Visual Studio Code notebook and start coding type of tutorial, because I didn't write this content and that's just not fair. So I'm just doing it. And yeah, if you were just like sitting around, I say even in bed or something, going to sleep, but why would you pick this video when you could pick another one? If you like my voice, I guess. But like going to bed, when I used to be going to bed back during my leaving cert and stuff, which is the high level, like your final exams, leaving school or whatever, in Ireland, I used to fall asleep to basically like recordings. I had recorded myself, so I clearly liked my voice. Now, who else are you going to get to do this stuff for you? Like, so I recorded myself saying all of my books and fell asleep to it, and subconsciously, I mean, something was going in there, you know. So yeah, that's an idea. Listen to mine or somebody else's videos, or get a tutorial on Udemy and just put it really low and across the other side of the room. But all these terminology, this is all new language, and if you're not into the world of coding, and you will get it, you just need to get accustomed to it and get used to it, and soon you'll be flying. So keep it up, watch these if you're like sort of at the very beginning and you're not really sure what you want to be doing, and might give you some ideas. And definitely the bug fixing is gonna, as I come across problems, that's gonna be valuable. But I'm not doing this for people to follow along with. I would be explaining it much better if I was, and it wasn't my content anyway. Going in loops there, but you get it, guys. So let's keep going. Excuse me. Okay, so the only reason that's crossed out is because I need to actually pass it in. Okay, so whenever we normally submit a form, so the forms come with their own on-submit method, inbuilt method that allows you to handle what happens to this form when you submit it. So you might see in Angular or in HTML, there's different ways to do it. Like you might have a function here on your submit button, but for these forms, the forms for these forms, they have an inbuilt on submit method that can be used in order to handle how you're going to submit your forms. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this, and here Preventdefault is also an inbuilt method function that we can use. And what this Preventdefault method is doing is, normally when you submit a form, there is a response sent up to the server that's associated with this page, but we don't want that to happen. We just want to continue to do things on this page. So that's why we've prevented the default behavior of sending a request anywhere. The Preventdefault is default JavaScript behavior. He's so great, you guys. One day I will make a course when I can explain it to a level close to max. I'll be in there making you a course, guys. But until I can't explain it a bit more thoroughly, I wouldn't make a full course. I'll stick with the things I know and the things that I know are going to help you. So, because you'd really want to understand it all so well to explain everything that you're putting into a course to the level max does. Yeah. Okay, so by adding this value attribute on each of our different inputs or things that we are having our change handler on, the things that we're watching for when they change. We want to do something after they change. So not even in the case, oh well, the date is an input. Yeah, so for all of these different inputs, or anything that has this title change handler, amount change handler, or date change handler, we are just capturing the value that's put in when we press the keyboard. But in order to reflect that back and to keep everything binded, so to have two-way binding, so if you put in one thing, it comes out on the screen. If you change the screen, it goes back into the get saved, you know. So by using the submit, you can save the new value. By typing in a new value, you can change the value. So we have two-way binding going on here, and in order to make this work, we add this value attribute onto each of these, and this is telling this now that this is the value that we want to display on this particular input. Therefore we have it bound both ways. So this is how we do two-way binding, and you can see the changes in your page as you're going along. So give it a go. And actually, two-way binding is a really important concept. So I'll link an article about that. I'll find a good resource, something that helps me to fully understand it and go, oh, that's great, that really explains two-way binding in a way that's very eloquent and I understand that. So I'll include a link to an article like that down below, because it's a very important concept. So yeah, it's just a good one to know, you know. So I have this error that, let's just reload to be certain. Oh, sometimes you just have to take the simplest approach, you know. If you're stuck on an error for ages, close down your IDE, as in where you're doing your code editing, and just shut it down, close it completely down and restart it again. Or even, like, I'd start with just stopping your server. So just to do this, you just press CTRL and C, and that'll stop that, and then spin it up again, run it again, and this can solve many problems. Now, it's not going to solve them all. If you have an error there, you need to just have a little read of it and try and see how you can solve it. But I had an error there and I wasn't sure what it was going on about, because what it said was there was a comma on line 14 that shouldn't have been there. And from what I seen quickly, it was a comma on expenseform.js on line 14. And then I came here and I was like, and just thought to reload this page, and that fixed it. So just to be aware that these things happen. You will get in the habit eventually of just reloading your pages and rebooting up your server where it's running, your local development server, and also closing your IDE altogether, your code editor, because yeah, these things, you know, you can get stuck on them, and after you've got stuck on them for too long, too many times, you remember. So don't be frustrated if you do get into a tizzy like that. If you've been stuck for hours and you only figured out hours later that that's what the problem was, maybe just switch off there for the night. Like, that's enough. You've solved that painful bug, even though it was something so simple. And if you're just feeling very frustrated because you're like, oh, I can't believe that's what it was, and you've been stuck for ages, and you know, you're feeling you're not really I don't think I can go to the morning meditation. Sorry, I've gotta do what I'm doing. Okay, so yeah, I just got a reminder there and it knocked off my phone. But the reminder, we're just going to continue what we're doing here. So once we have submitted the form and we've come in here to the submit handler, the function that we said that we want to run as soon as we submit, press that submit button, this is what's going to happen. What we want to do in here then is clear the form so it's clear for the next time. So we've logged out our expense data, that's fine, and then after we have it, we're going to set the various fields, so title, amount, and date, back to nothing. So okay, yeah, I did that. Save it. Okay, so let's see. Title. Insurance or assurance? I think you can still get life insurance. Or maybe it's assurance because you're going to just be dead. Sobering thought in the morning. Sorry. Disrespectful. So, well, I'm speaking to myself here, so I guess I can do what I want. Sorry, I'm a bit like lucid this morning. I don't know what's going on. My button has disappeared. Okay. So I don't have a submit button. Let's just inspect the page. Sometimes when your elements are missing, they may not be missing, they just might not be visible. So here it does look like we just have our controls. There's our 3 controls. And to open up this here, I'm trying to go from the beginning because I remember when I didn't know, people used to just go open up this, open up that, and they're just flying around, and I'm like, how did they open that? Like, getting very confused. So you go here to your side menu and you just go down to more tools, and this is the same in Chrome and Firefox, or very similar. It's definitely the same in Chrome. It's more tools and developer tools. This is Brave. I've just got a bit sick of Chrome, so trying something new. So in here, and now we've opened up our developer tools, and we can use this inspect arrow and hover over the items, and that will then tell us a little bit about these. So this is just giving us some very basic information on them, but if you click on it, then it'll bring you to where this is within your code. So this is the rendered version of the code that you've been coding. So you can do a lot of debugging in here. You can see if something's missing. If you're, say if you tried to send something out via a loop or something, and you were trying to render something on the screen and it wasn't showing, you could come in here to see why it wasn't showing or what was going on. It gives you hints, and then you can whittle down the problem and get your solution eventually. So this is this day field here, this is the amount field, and then we have our title field with, sorry, with the title in there. So then this is where our button is. So we do have a button, so that's great. Look, this is our no expense actions. We have our div, it did render, and it has a class attached. So all I think I've forgotten to do is actually stick some text in here, so we can actually do this in here. So I'll just type in submit. So this is why it's great, you know, and it's so good for CSS. If you need to make some CSS changes, you can come in here. There we go. You can come in here, you can test it out, and So say perhaps if I had a bug in work, this is what happens when you get into the professional field. Say if you're solving bugs, they might say, oh, this is 10 pixels off over this side. And if you're going through the code and you're trying to figure out where it is, how do I change this thing, it can be a bit tricky. So by coming here, now I know that this div, the class name that's on this whole box, is called expenses. So I can go back to my code and search for this class or class name, which we've actually given in React, but here it's being called class. So I can come back to my code and search for class, and that'll bring me for the class expenses or the class name expenses. And you can do this project wide, and this is going to bring me exactly where I need to go. So I know this is a CSS class. I'm not talking about expenses that will be in a JS file. Well, you are going to have your CSS, but if you have your CSS class, giving it some properties and defining what you want that class to do, like, you know that this is the CSS class, then, you know, unless you had another expenses in another file, but it seriously shortens the space for you to have a look. So now we're here, expenses.css. So then if I go to my expenses.js, so the CSS is the styles for the JS file. So then we know that that's our class there. We've pinpointed this location in the file. This project could be hundreds of files, if not thousands of files. Big projects that I've been working with in my jobs, like, they're hundreds of files big, you know. It's not a few little files like this. It's folders and folders and folders and folders, and if you're not using the search and finding things by IDs and class names, or you've worked with them for a while, excuse me. So at 44. Save it. Okay, so let's see. Title. Insurance or assurance? I think you can still get life insurance. Or maybe it's assurance because you're going to just be dead. Sobering thought in the morning. Sorry. Oh, fuck's sake. 47. So time to get back into it. Whoop! Okay, so we're here looking at the new input. So let's have a look and try and add this. So let's have a look and try and add this. Okay, so I've just noticed I don't have a submit button here, so something has gone wrong with the submit button. I do remember adding it, so we could go back and have a look at the code, but I'll just show you how you can inspect this to see whether or not anything is being rendered on the page whatsoever.